when I first came out, I wanted to advocate, but people like Nina and Morbid and all of these content creators slam me down, and I'm human. That's going to get to me. So what else do I have? Okay, I'm going to showcase my life, putting on my makeup, doing my daily routine, because that's what's fun to me. Now, is there a time to get serious? Absolutely. But I'm trying to figure out the time and place and the proper way to go about that.
That race is a factor?
Absolutely. They have made a Instagram page of me calling me Nina the Clown with blackface. And then also they made another page of me with a dolphin and ginormous lips and a bonnet.
Wow.
It absolutely is. And I mean, it's not really that surprising, because why is it me out of everybody else? I actually took screenshots of it ahead of time just to prove my case, because I am going to handle it legally. So I made sure I had documentation.
Wow.
We had Gypsy Rose Blanchard come out in interviews always talking about how she's being targeted and misunderstood. She often plays the victim, saying she's bullied online, and it comes up in nearly every discussion she has these days.
I hate social media. If it was just my opinion alone, I would have already deleted my TikTok, deleted my Instagram, and went completely off social media. But a lot of people were talking to me and in my ear, it's 10 million followers. Do you realize how big that is? People cannot buy that kind of following. Maybe they can. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But, I got that organically from the time that I got released. My social accounts blew up. And so there are people that tell me you'd be a dumbass if you would delete your socials.
She doesn't stop there. Gypsy even goes further, claiming that the criticism is unfair, that people just don't understand her or her situation.
I think from my perspective, my perspective is very, reality based, where a lot of times I'm kind of social media, what we don't see won't hurt us. Right. So just kind of live in the present, live in the real life. We have a lot going on. I'm 5 months pregnant. We've got a lot of good things going for us, coming up on a holiday here pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to all of these milestone moments. That's going to be my first since prison. So, I don't want to keep my head in the phone or on social media. I want it to be in the real world, and I want him to feel the same way. So we have had a lot of discussions about social media and about how to be more grounded with reality.
Gypsy says all these things, but when you sit down and really think about it, you have to ask yourself, who is Gypsy really? What does she want? What's her true motive behind all of this? Because while she talks a lot about being victimized, she's been doing a lot herself. She doesn't stop, and frankly, some of her actions have been the worst we've seen. So, let's break it down for you. It's important to understand that Gypsy's manipulative tendencies didn't just vanish when her mother was killed. Gypsy has often been portrayed as a helpless victim, someone who was controlled all her life and finally broke free. But what if the narrative isn't entirely true? What if the manipulative behavior she learned as a child has stayed with her, transforming into a tool she now uses against others? A glaring example of this manipulation is how she involved Nicolas Godejohn in her mother's murder. Nicolas was a man on the autism spectrum, vulnerable to emotional manipulation, and Gypsy used that to her advantage.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard premeditated her mother's unaliving at the age of 23, using a man with autism that was collecting a disability check with mental health issues and a low IQ. Again, I'm saying he was collecting a disability check, but somehow this man has life and she's out here running the streets.
She convinced him that the only way they could be together was if he killed her mother. Gypsy didn't just ask him for help. She made him believe that their entire relationship, their love, depended on him committing this act of violence. Nicholas, blinded by his love for Gypsy and his belief that he was rescuing her, followed through with her wishes. And who paid the price? Nicholas, sentenced to life in prison, is serving the time for the murder Gypsy orchestrated. It's hard to ignore the fact that Gypsy manipulated someone with limited social understanding, taking advantage of his devotion and turning him into a tool for her own freedom. When we look at this case, it's clear that Gypsy is far from the helpless victim she portrays herself to be. Instead, we see a pattern, a deep-rooted ability to control and manipulate those around her, ensuring that she always comes out looking innocent, but is she truly the victim, or is she the one pulling the strings? Let's talk about Bree, someone who has become a key figure in defending Gypsy at all costs. Bree has been by Gypsy's side, not just as a friend, but as her most vocal supporter online.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard was never abused by her mother. As a matter of fact, for most of her life, she was in on the con. All Gypsy is a lying, manipulative, attention-seeking grifter. That's the narrative that all of you believe, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's a bunch of bullshit. And thanks to you guys, I'm finally going to be able to prove it. So many of you told me to go watch Becca Scoops, that she would have the truth and all the receipts to prove it. Well, I did. And I'm actually quite confused, because if that narrative were true, then that means Becca Scoops would not have to falsify any of Gypsy's story, correct?
But what's really going on here? Is Bree acting on her own, or has she fallen under Gypsy's influence? Just like Nicholas did, Bree's role goes beyond simple loyalty. She's actively involved in managing Gypsy's narrative, using her voice to threaten and intimidate anyone who dares to criticize Gypsy. On social media, Bree has made it her mission to protect Gypsy's image, often crossing lines to do so. She's threatened content creators, tried to get their accounts taken down, and in some cases, even aimed to destroy their livelihoods.
They're making money off the crime, like putting out absolutely disgusting things to try to hurt Gypsy, and they don't care about who else they're hurting in the mix of it. If anybody's profiting off of anything, it's them, not Gypsy. Gypsy does not ever mention
Gypsy,
that.
I have a petition. Can Bree get like one more half a frog leg per?
Yes, she can get a million frog legs.
Oh, yeah, Gypsy. Everybody, how much, Gypsy, do I get paid by you?
Only in frog legs.
Oh, y'all, I've been telling y'all, and she bought me a grill. But other than that,
One of the most shocking examples is what happened to Flawless Nina. Bree took her loyalty to an extreme by contacting Nina's employer and accusing her of bullying Gypsy online. Nina, a content creator known for exposing Gypsy's lies and manipulation, became a direct target of Bree's campaign, and the consequences were devastating. Nina, who had been working at a cosmetic company for about a year, suddenly found herself without a job. Her boss didn't want to let her go, but Bree's accusations forced the company's hand. The retailer that Bree contacted demanded action, and in order to protect their relationship with the retailer, the company had no choice but to fire Nina. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated move to silence Nina, to take away her platform and punish her for speaking out against Gypsy. Bree wasn't just defending Gypsy. She was actively working to destroy someone's life, all in the name of protecting her friend. But is Bree acting out of her own violation? Or has Gypsy once again found someone to manipulate, someone to do her bidding, while she stays in the background appearing innocent? Let's focus on Nina herself. Nina is a content creator who has been one of the most outspoken critics of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She has consistently called out Gypsy's lies and manipulation, and for that, she's paid a heavy price. Nina worked as a liaison for a cosmetic company, a job she had been excelling at for about a year. She was responsible for managing relationships between the brand and its retailers, a job that requires strong communication skills and trust. But everything changed when Bree, under Gypsy's influence, stepped in. One day, Nina's employer received a call from a retailer that Bree had contacted. The retailer, which had a partnership with the cosmetic company Nina worked for, claimed that Nina was bullying Gypsy Rose online. This accusation, which had no basis in reality, was enough to shake the company's trust in Nina, despite her boss being reluctant to fire her. The company couldn't afford to lose their relationship with the retailer. As a result, Nina was let go.
A lot of people don't know that Nina was actually fired from her job as a result of Gypsy Rose. It's something that's not really talked about that much, and I think people kind of want to have further insight on it. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to answer some questions.
Thank you for having me. But it has been a wild ride, and basically I worked for a cosmetic company, and I was a liaison between the brand and the retailer. We were in several retailers, and they called a particular retailer, and when they called that retailer complained to my job. And of course, because that's a retailer that the brand is in, they have to appease the retailer. So they had to let me go. Basically, they were saying that I was bullying Gypsy Rose online.
Wow. And who do you, when you say, like, who do you think it was, that, if that's something you want to speak on?
It was Bree, and she said she was Gypsy Rose's cousin.
Wow.
And I didn't initially know they were the reason why at first, because they told me it was misconduct. And I wasn't sure, but honestly, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. And, you know, it's crazy because you could tell they didn't want to let me go. Like, my boss was really sad when she told me. But, you know, I had already been creating content. I was already making good money. So I kind of was like, okay, I'll be fine. It's fine. But I found out later, after one of the people from my job said it, but I thought it was a lie, really, to be honest with you, until Bree was on live and said, I got Nina fired from her job.
Wow.
That's when I realized, no, it really was. This wasn't just someone saying this.
Wow.
And I hadn't made it public at all. I really kept it under wraps.
Imagine that for a second, losing your job, not because you did anything wrong at work, but because someone with a vendetta decided to attack you for speaking the truth. Nina wasn't bullying anyone. She was simply pointing out Gypsy's contradictions and manipulations, something that Gypsy herself clearly didn't want the world to see. And here's the part that stings. Gypsy and Bree didn't stop there. Losing her job was just the beginning of the attack on Nina. But the situation with Nina didn't end with her losing her job. What came next was even more disturbing. Nina became a target for a racially charged harassment, something that added a whole new layer to the attacks. Social media accounts were created solely to mock Nina in the most offensive ways imaginable. They called her Nina the Clown and used blackface imagery along with their hurtful racial stereotypes to tear her down. This wasn't just random trolling. These were coordinated efforts to discredit Nina, to silence her voice by attacking her identity. But here's the most shocking part. Gypsy and her family weren't just bystanders to this. They were actively following and liking these posts, engaging with accounts that were spewing racist hate towards Nina. This wasn't a case of anonymous trolls acting on their own. This was a calculated attack that had Gypsy's silent approval.
Believe that race is a factor?
Absolutely. They have made a Instagram page of me calling me Nina the Clown with blackface. And then also they made another page of me with a dolphin and ginormous lips and a bonnet.
Wow.
It absolutely is. And I mean, it's not really that surprising because why is it me out of everybody else that they went for? And it's been very, they have made it very personal when for me, it's not personal. It's about getting the truth out there, right? And the media won't get it out there. So, you know, I'm going to focus my energy on getting the truth out there because people really need to know that this is a sham and everything is a lie. But I definitely do believe it's racially motivated.
That's right. I mean,
correct. Yes.
These racist accounts that were set up.
Yeah, I actually took screenshots of it ahead of time just to prove my case because I am going to handle it legally. So I made sure I had documentation.
Wow.
Think about that. Nina wasn't just attacked for speaking out against Gypsy's lies. She was attacked for who she is. The racial harassment she faced wasn't just hurtful. It was meant to break her down, to discredit her in a worst way possible. And this comes from the same group of people who constantly claim that Gypsy is being unfairly targeted, misunderstood and bullied. The hypocrisy is undeniable. Gypsy wants to play the victim. The actions of those who defend her tell a very different story. Now, let's zoom out and take a broader look at Gypsy's tactics. Gypsy Rose Blanchard isn't just manipulating individuals like Nicolas Godejohn or Bree. She's manipulating the entire narrative around her. She has mastered the art of media manipulation, crafting a story where she's always the misunderstood victim.
I feel like the biggest misconception about me is that they think that I'm still that little girl that got arrested or that was in the wheelchair living with my mother. I think they don't realize that there has been a time gap from when I got arrested to now. I've grown up, I've matured, I'm a woman, I'm married. Like, a lot has changed. Whereas I think when they watch the previous documentaries and even the act, I think their image of me in their mind is still stuck in that time space. And they don't allow for any growth because all they see is those images of me living with my mom. And so I think now that I'm coming out as a woman and sharing my story now, I hope they'll see me in a more grown-up light. Life is what you make it. I took the complicated situation, I took a situation that I had no control over, and I turned it into a positive. So I worked for 8.5 years to take classes, get my GED, better myself as a person, make it not wasted or dead time.
The person who just can't catch a break. But the truth is, Gypsy knows exactly what she is doing. She has learned how to use her past to shield herself from any criticism. Anytime someone speaks out against her, she frames it as an attack on her character, positioning herself as the perpetual victim, and people buy into it. Look at how she responds to criticism online. Whether it's clapping emojis or TikTok, when people mock her critics, or simply allowing her supporters to go after people like Nina, Gypsy ensures that she always comes out looking the innocent one. But this manipulation extends beyond just social media. Gypsy has successfully manipulated the media to the point where many outlets still see her as the girl who was victimized by her mother. While it's true that she suffered under her mother's control, it's equally true that Gypsy has used that story to avoid taking accountability for the pain she continues to cause today. Gypsy's manipulation is subtle, but it's there.
I'm starting to notice something, and tell me if you're noticing it too, but it seems like the media frenzy tide is beginning to turn against Gypsy Rose. In all of the posts that used to glorify her, stand with her, it now seems like a lot of people are turning against her. Many are saying that she is a master manipulator who only is concerned with fame, and that's why she only follows a handful of social media accounts, and they're all media outlets like TMZ and things like that. A lot of people also don't love the fact that her ex-boyfriend, who is the one who committed the murder against her mother, is still in jail while she's out free and getting this like huge national press tour. But here's another thing that makes me wonder if she is in fact a master manipulator. She says that she doesn't identify as a murderer because her ex-boyfriend is the one who committed the murder, right?
Like, it's something that I'm gonna have to address because it's always in my comments. Like, why are we glorifying a murderer and this and that and the other? And, you know, I don't want to have to remind people every single time that I'm not the one that committed the act of the kill.
She's crafted a public image that allows her to continue hurting people like Nicholas, Bree, and Nina, all while the world sympathizes with her. Who is the real Gypsy Rose Blanchard? She's far more than the victim she claims to be. She's someone who has learned how to manipulate, control, and destroy the lives of those around her, all while maintaining her image as an innocent and misunderstood figure. Gypsy has left a trail of destruction in her wake. And yet, she continues to play the victim. But the truth is becoming harder to ignore. More and more people are starting to see Gypsy for who she really is. A master manipulator who has used her tragic past to justify her actions in the present. It's time to stop letting Gypsy hide behind her victimhood and start holding her accountable for the harm she continues to cause. If you want to hear more about the truth behind Gypsy's manipulation, make sure to subscribe and stay informed. It's time to stop letting these lies slide and start standing up for the truth.